Hello everyone and welcome to part 7 of the BMC 1.8 diesel engine build. Okay, for this instalment then we're going to be going over the front plate, okay, and there's quite a lot going on this front plate as opposed to the gearbox mounting plate. So we're going to take this opportunity just to go over some of the items that you'll find on the mounting plate, what to check for, signs of wear and tear, and when to consider changing the mounting plate and the accessories that you find on there. Now, one of the main components that you'll find attached to it is the drive, the sprocket for the fuel injection pump, the cab pump, the DPA pump, whatever you want to call it. Okay, this item then, on the front you've got the sprocket. Within there then you've got a number of components. So just on here you can see the silvery sort of shiny object, okay, which is that part there. Now they do have a habit of getting dirt ingress into them, okay, and I don't know if you can make it out on that one, but this one is pretty badly etched, okay, so we're not going to reuse that one. Again, that's one for the skip. Whilst we're on there then, there is a retaining circlip inside there. They do occasionally come off and cause some dramas. So when you're inspecting the component parts, just make sure that that circlip is set fully home and is in serviceable order. It's not split or cracked. Okay, within that then, okay, just underneath there you get two plates. Okay, again, checking for signs of wear and tear. And then you get these little retainers on top. So the 4 bolts that you can see on there that retain that, you've got 2 retainers with the edges that fold up to stop them from coming loose and causing any sort of dramas. On that then you're looking for general condition of the teeth. They should be generally sharp to the feel. Just spin it around by eye and just make sure that there's no teeth missing, bent teeth, anything like that. Just spinning it over then underneath. Okay, you've got this this plate here, okay, one item. This is a sort of attachment for your oil feed which goes to the block. Okay, you would have seen that when you're disassembling it. And to undo this then, it's simply a Phillips head screw, undo that, and then with a gentle tap this mounting plate should come out. And again, you're checking for any sort of wear and tear inside there or on the teeth, making sure that there's no damage. Okay, there is a gasket that lives underneath there then, so when you're doing this servicing, okay, and you're deattaching all of this sort of stuff, there is a new gasket that you'll have to replace underneath there. But just to show you, when the plate is taken off, okay, that's where the under gasket will sit. Okay, and then obviously looking around here, again for signs of wear and tear, but predominantly on the inside. This is the counterpart to this item. Okay, you can see over time there's been some sort of ingress and you can just hear it. It's generally a sort of grinding sound. It's not smooth to the finish, unlike this one. So gasket under there when you're servicing that. Also on top then, okay, you've got a little gauge, a little silver plate attached by two bolts. Okay, that is to do with the alignment of your fuel injection pump to do the advance and retard. So you need to ensure that that's in place. Now if you are using the same plate, if you are using the same pump as before, just triple check your markings when you before disassembly, just to make sure that you're aligning everything when you're placing it all back together. So fuel injection pump assembly. Also on here then, like I said, there's a lot going on. You got a vibration dampener. Okay, vibration damper held on by 2 bolts. Okay, again, these do become fractured. Okay, so you're looking at the general condition of that. Okay, the top face and just general condition. You got a tension shoe. Okay, this tension shoe down the bottom is in generally good condition, but I'm going to put a new one on anyway. But just to show you what can happen, when the chain actually does catch, it takes massive chunks out of it. It's not usually this end section away from the eye that degrades. It's usually further up top. Okay, but again, that's one for the rubbish bin because it's got a massive chunk missing out of it. Okay, held on by a pain in the arse little sort of circlip. Okay, but all you need to do is just prise that apart, that lifts off, and you just place your replacement item on there. You've obviously got your recesses then for your camshaft at the top here. So once this is on, then you've got the three bolt holes which match up with the block, which will have your camshaft retainer on there, and then the main opening then for your crankshaft down the bottom. So not sure the correct technical term for this then, but there is a sort of sprocket that helps guide between the fuel pump, the crankshaft and the camshaft. Again, you're looking at the general wear of the inside and outside faces. Okay, this one's got a little bit of pitting, so it may well it might clean up, but it might well be worth replacing that as well. But you're just looking for a general free-flowing movement within there. And then when you place it back on then, okay, you see a tiny little hole on the back, okay, which will marry up with this small peg here. If that peg's missing, okay, you need to work out a way of getting that peg back in. But when you're realigning it, okay, that just aids with placing that on so it's not rotating everywhere. But that's the main plate itself. Okay, a few other items that go on there, but we'll come across that when we're installing it. The other thing I just want to mention then is, depending on what environment this plate's come out of, or the engine in general, what I tend to find if it's come out from a marine application is these faces that you can see that are at the moment slightly dull usually have quite a lot of pitting because they've been exposed to salt water and therefore a bit more corrosion than the rest of the fascia. And you'll just find that wherever the cover doesn't fit. So this one is in really good condition. It's not actually pitted, it's just dulled, so this will polish up quite nicely before it's repaint. But if there's any sort of degradation going underneath where you can see where the previous gasket was, okay, you may need to polish it out as best as possible. But if you start grinding away, you're obviously going to make an uneven pattern on the metal face itself. And you know, the gaskets do a good job, but they can only do so much. So you're just generally looking for the overall condition of the faces that will be exposed outside of the engine block itself. Okay, so the last item that we're going to look at that attaches to the front mounting plate is this tensioning assembly down the bottom. Okay, it lives right down the bottom of the whole assembly. Now, this one is in generally good condition, but I personally find it quite a poor design. So it has the mounting bolt there, and then the idea is that you know, you lock it in place by means of a flat edge screwdriver, whatever it is you're going to use. You lock it in place, you place your chain on, and then when you release it, it sort of separates and tightens up the chain. But because this assembly running down the middle is made out of plastic, this age, degradation, hardening of plastic, you go to turn the flat edge and it just disintegrates. So unfortunately, gonna have to sacrifice this generally good condition tensioner and put a new one on, just because there's no way of adjusting it anymore. Okay, let's have a look at getting this front mounting plate on then. So what we're going to need for this then is a nice high quality replacement gasket, 2 bolts, okay, they're about, give or take, 20 mils long, okay, and they're going to sit either side here just to retain the front mounting plate. At this stage in the game, it's only 2 bolts that are going to hold this on until we get all the other accessories on with the front sort of mounting case cover. Okay, so just point to note, only 2 bolts at the moment. Okay, when you get your replacement lower end gasket set or bottom end gasket set, they come with these 2 cork strips which need to be soaked in oil. Okay, they're going to cause the seal from the sump bottom end of the block towards the front mounting plate Okay, so pre-soaked in oil, and they're just going to sit inside there like so. Okay, nice and flush. Okay, and then when we compress the front plate on, that causes a nice seal down there. Okay, key that they go in there. A bit of sandpaper then, nothing too coarse, sort of 400-600 grits, absolutely fine. A bit of penetrating oil, ratchet extension preferably, and a little bit of the engine oil that we're going to use in the motor. So we're going to start then by just giving it a little bit of lubrication with a penetrating oil. Okay, just quick spray on there, get your sandpaper, and now's the opportunity just to give it a last check to make sure there's sort of no contaminants, no gasket material left on there. Okay, and just make sure we've got a clean maintenance service ready for the new gasket and the mounting plate. So just going by eye. And once we're done there, then same procedure to the back of the mounting plate, and then just give it a wipe off with a lint-free cloth. Okay, there we go. So these gaskets then, okay, it's a bit of a pain because you've only got the 2 bolts that are holding it in. Okay, you need to make sure that this is as flat as possible, because as you do lay it on and then place the plate on, they do have a habit of wanting to move around. So try and make sure that that gasket is sort of sitting as flush as possible when you place the mounting plate onto it. Now what you can do then is just put a little dab of motor oil onto the back of it, and it just causes a bit of a stick and just keeps it in place. But place the mounting plate on, put the bolts in, and then sort of orientate this as best possible to make sure that it's sitting completely flush. And you can do that by looking through and making sure that all the bolt holes and everything align. So what I've done then is I've just placed the gasket on the back there, okay, with the fuel pump plate pointing back towards the gearbox mount. Okay, as you can see down there, so it's going to sit in that orientation. So with the drive sprocket pointing back towards yourself. Okay, and I've just put the 2 bolts in there, okay, just to hang the gasket in place. What we're then looking at then is supporting it. Okay, align it over as best possible. Okay, and then you're looking at just getting those 2 bolts to bite in position. Okay. Okay, so there's one. Okay, like I said, it can be tricky. Okay, making sure you're not bearing or tearing your gasket. Okay, using the end of the camshaft there just to basically align it. And then getting the second one to bite there. Okay, so that can sort of hang freely there. Okay, you can do these up by hand tight. Okay, just getting them to sit more flush. And then you're basically working your way around and just making sure the gasket is sat completely where it needs to sit. So it might need a bit of wiggling around, but around the bottom of the camshaft there. Okay, and just using your finger, not really putting any force into it. Okay, and just making sure that everything is aligning as it should. Okay, so no signs of the paper gasket through the bolt hole, so I'm fairly happy that's aligned. And then once that's done, simply grabbing the correct ratchet, or at the moment I'm using a 13mm, but just get a nose. Well, you get the principle. Okay, so they're sitting at the moment hand tight. Okay, before you go too far, then, as you can see, the cork seals popped out. So just making sure that she's sat in there fully before you put any sort of real pressure onto it. Okay, and then once you're happy, just go through the tech docs. I'll find out for you and add that in a second. But just torque these up to the specs in the manual. There we go. Okay, at this stage then, our vibration damper can go in. Okay, you just see it there, 2 bolts holding it on. You might be able to see the sort of silhouette or the markings from where it sat previously, but it sits just next to the fuel pump sprocket. Okay, and that's to guide the chain off the sprocket, across the vibration damper, and then up to the sort of small sprocket that lives here. So the more bolts that we put into the front plate, the better a seal we're going to get on that rear gasket that we've just fitted. So again, doing them up, okay, till they're sort of sat fully flush, and then grabbing your ratchet and extension or long socket, okay, and we just go along. And at the moment we're just doing up everything hand tight till we can't physically do it up anymore by hand. You don't want to put any exertion into it, because the last thing we need to do is snap one of these bolts. So vibration damper is now in place. Okay, next on the agenda then we've got the camshaft sprocket assembly. Now what we do have is a camshaft retainer bracket. Okay, it's quite key that it's orientated so that the part you see there, okay, the larger edge, okay, is facing that direction. At the moment we're just going to hang that on there. What we then do is put in a new camshaft key, place on the sprocket, a retaining, not a washer, a retaining locking plate then goes on top of that, followed by the nut itself. So camshaft key, okay, set in there. We can then gently guide the camshaft sprocket on, okay, making sure that the larger section is facing back towards the motor. Okay, bit tricky, you might need to do some wiggling, that's what these access holes are for. Okay, and then with these access holes, there's enough clearance inside there then to get the 3 retaining bolts started. So the idea behind here then is you can get the bolts in and started, and then rotate it around to get access through these holes. So you're going to need quite a small socket adapter to get inside of there. Okay, and that's those in place. Okay, once we're there with that, then we can then get our new locking tab. Okay, you see the little bit on the back there, the bent bit of steel. All that simply does then is place over the camshaft end. Okay, and the locking tab will just go into the recess where your key is. Finally then, you can grab your nut from the camshaft. Okay, you might want to slightly lubricate it. Okay, and then grab in the appropriate socket. In this case, I'm using a 1/5/16. Okay, just place that on the end then, and then securing the camshaft, possibly just to stop it rotating with a piece of wood or something like that, is just tighten it up and again torque it to the specs in the manual. So what we're looking for then is everything secured in place, everything torqued up as per the specs. The fuel pump lever should be bang centre on the cam there, and you can just give it a quick rotation. Listen to the operation of the fuel pump. Make sure it's pumping correctly. Okay, and that lever is staying flush on that centre cam. And that is 1x camshaft installed. What we're going to look at next then is getting our some of the other retaining bolts squared away, ready to go on, because they are all different lengths. Having a look at the crankshaft sprocket, this little idling gear down here, getting the chain on, and then getting everything aligned obviously with the new tension shoe. So whilst we've got the block upside down, and to save us perpetually turning it upside down, turning it around, so on and so forth, there's another item that we can get on at this stage in the game, just so it's done, and that's the oil pump. Now the oil pump's cam driven, sat down here, held on by these 3 studs with your washers and nuts on top of there. Okay, there is a gasket that will go in between the sort of flange here and the oil pump itself. So again, nice high quality paper gasket from the set from Charnley's. The oil pump itself, okay, what you're doing then is 2 bolts, remove these, separate it, have a look at the condition of the gear inside. If it's showing any signs of wear or any chipping or anything like that, it's either time to replace the whole oil pump. It's not an expensive item, or try and get a service pack for it depending on the condition. No gasket up here, okay, it's just metal on metal retained by the 2 bolts you can see there. The basket itself then, you're looking to make sure that there's no damage, no holes or anything in the basket. They do dent, there are some little dents that can form in here when you drop them. I speak from experience, but again, held on by 3 bolts, can simply be removed. Gasket lives underneath there, again in the service pack. Okay, and all you need to do is just flush it out with a degreasant, just to make sure it's free from any debris and serviceable. As I've already mentioned then, cam driven. Okay, you're looking for a nice fluid motion, and again checking that the gear itself is free from any chips or any major defects. So that's where we are so far. Okay, what we'll do then is we'll just take a cloth, again our lint-free cloth. We'll just go around the flange itself, making sure it's completely free from any dirt, any grime. Okay, as I said, these studs are placed on exactly the same as the head studs and the rocker studs that we covered in an earlier video. And as you'll see, there is a hole down here, okay, which will help us marry up with our hole on the replacement gasket. So simply making sure it's the right way round. Okay, just gently ease the paper gasket over the threads first. Okay, making sure that you don't nip or burr it. Okay, take your time, bit of patience here. Gets a lot easier when you get down to the bare thread. The non-threaded stem. Okay, and then gently lower it in place. No need for any sealant or any RTV, silicone, anything like that. That's what the gasket's for. You will find when you're doing these engines, then, if you become or doing them regularly, that some people don't buy the service gasket set, and they will simply use silicone on everything. So there it is, set up nice, clear, free from any sort of dirt or ingress. What you can then do then is get the basket itself. I've already alluded to the hole there, okay, and again where the 3 studs will go through. Okay, this shouldn't fall out. It should be sort of suction, keeps it in, I'm guessing. And all we're looking for then is gently easing that basket gently over the studs. Okay, and the gear should sit naturally in place. What you can then do is give the camshaft a rotation. Not only will you hear your fuel pump operating now, okay, but you'll now hear the oil pump working. To finish that off then, okay, 3 new washers. Followed up by the 3 nuts, I believe they are 5/16 off the top of my head. Okay, just start off by doing them by hand. And when you get down to the nitty gritty then, just a small ratchet and the appropriate socket will do. What we do is we go around and we'll double check the torque specs. Okay, we've already done the crankshaft, that was done, I think it's 103 Newton meters, so we know they're done. But we'll just take this opportunity now to refer to the manual, check the settings, and make sure that all the con rods, nuts and everything is torqued up as per the spec, and I'll cover those specs quickly as we go around and do it. So like I've already alluded to, we're nearly done with the bottom end. We know we torqued up our bearing carriers here, crankshaft bearing carriers to 103 Newton meters. We know they're set. Just going to double check now to make sure that the con rod bolts are done up to 47 Newton meters, and then after that we'll then double check that the oil pump itself is torqued up as per the specs as well. They're about 17 Newton meters. Now my torque wrench doesn't go that low, the one I've got with me today, so it's just sort of guesstimating that those are tight enough and sealed well enough. So just go around on the con rods then, okay. I got one. So once we're done there, then we can get the final cork stripping pre-soaked in oil to seal there before the gearbox adapter plate goes on. I may do it now, I may not, because it's going to fall out when we remove the block. What we can then do then, that's basically order the whole assembly in the lower section of the engine. Just a final check to make sure everything is aligned. Nice clean, making sure the edges are free from bearing any sort of dirt or ingress. New gasket on, sump on top of that, and then the 18 bolts to retain all of that. So our new crankshaft woodruff keys have arrived, okay, from ASAP Supplies. Okay, and I've just orientated it so that the two recesses at the moment are pointing back towards the camera just for ease of visibility. Now just make sure that it's free from any sort of dirt build up inside there, and you're looking for a nice clean fit, okay, so that the woodruff key sits in there. Okay, it shouldn't be too free moving, should just fit nicely there. Okay, again making sure that your crankshaft sprocket again is free from any debris, fracturing, cracks or anything like that, and the channel is nice and clear. Okay, it should simply be a case of aligning it, okay, with the corresponding recess of the key. Okay, and then it should just fit over there. Again, you've checked the surfaces, the end of the crankshaft. Okay, this was a reconditioned crankshaft, it's been reground, so it's nice and clean. Okay, and the sprocket again, I've checked the teeth, make sure there's no warpage or anything like that. Okay, what I will mention now then is the shims are already in there. We have checked this for end float. I'm not going to go into that. There's plenty of other videos online where you can check the end float, and again the data is in the workshop manual. So that's all we're looking at the moment. Okay, so the original service tools are like rocking horse poo to get hold of. Okay, so we have to make do with other things we've got around the workshop. Now our fuel injection pump sprocket, there is a hole going through the top hat here, goes through the locking plates, through the sprocket, and then what I'm doing is using a 3/16 Allen key, okay, and you just rotating it round till you feel it, and then it will naturally lock through all the plates and the hole in our front plate and the fuel injection pump housing on the other side. Okay, so that's that sprocket now firmly locked in place. Additionally then, what we've got is on our camshaft, we've got a timing mark, okay, a small circle there. If we're looking directly down at the moment, okay, this being the 12 o'clock position, it's just roughly at the 2 o'clock position over there at the moment. So on our crankshaft, we have a timing line, a little needle, and what we're looking at is orientation to get those aligned with each other. And this basically stops interference between the crankshaft and the camshaft. So at the moment, all I'm going to do is simply get our 33mm socket on, okay, and then I'm just going to rotate it so that our timing marks are roughly aligned. Not there yet. Okay, so our timing sort of needle is now pointing in the 7 o'clock position, and I'm just going to slowly rotate the camshaft so that those are pointing directly towards each other. What that should allow us to do then, while they're roughly in that position, is rotate the crankshaft now, and there shouldn't be any interference between that and our camshaft. Okay, so all I've done at the moment is I've just got our chain, okay, nice new chain, and I've just lowered it over so that it's basically running over the crankshaft sprocket, around our crankshaft socket. I've just placed the idler, just free dangling there at the moment, and then around the top of our fuel injection pump sprocket, and then over our tension shoe, okay, and then back so that it runs the full circuit. Okay, just make sure that you don't place the chain on the other side of the tension shoe. Okay, just taking you down for a bit of closer detail then. Okay, what we're looking for then is no slack on the chain where it goes from the fuel injection pump sprocket, which is locked off with our Allen key, over the damper, okay, and then the idler, 14mm bolt in the centre with the hub and then the sprocket. So it's easier to lay the sprocket on first. Once you make sure you've got no slack between the camshaft and the fuel injection pump, okay, gently place the hub inside and then a 14mm bolt which goes in to retain that, and as you can see it's running smoothly over the damper, okay, and no slack in the chain all the way round. Okay, also at this stage then there's no slack going from the camshaft over to our crankshaft. We've got our arrows aligned, okay, and what we're looking for is placing a straight edge. So basically where it runs from this sort of mark here is a straight edge and a line through there, through our timing mark and then to our arrow. So we're looking for accuracy, getting a straight line. Always keep a spare one of these camshaft locking tabs handy, because you can sort of place it over the nut, line the where the bolt holes will be underneath, okay, and it just sort of aids in the alignment process. Okay, with regards to the tensioner assembly then, all I've done is push this this plastic item so that the spring's compressed. Opening it up then, okay, you can get a flat edge in there, and then ensuring that it's clear of this raised item, okay, on the plastic support, okay, you can then turn that, which will lock it in place. Now the principle behind this then is that the flat edge is then gonna go against this peg, so it's important that that peg's there. And then once it's sprung open, when you release the tension from the front, is this will spin up or open up, okay, it will put tension onto the shoe, okay, which will put tension onto the chain. Okay, so what I've done is placed on the tensioner assembly, tightened it up with a 3/16 Allen key, okay, and then I've already alluded to the pretty poor design with this little flat edge and this being plastic and the awkward position to get in there. So what I actually use is a pair of needle nose pliers, okay, just give it a nice grip on there, release the tension, you'll see the spring open up, this will fling back, okay, and it will put the chain under tension on the tensioner shoe. So what we've got now then is our timing marks aligned, okay, through the hole guide that I mentioned earlier, okay, using the spare cam locking plate, okay, so that can come off now, and we've got a nice straight line going all the way through this timing mark on the camshaft, through the timing mark on the camshaft, okay, that we saw earlier, okay, chain all aligned, 47 Newton meters, okay, on the idler gear, flowing fluidly over everything with no slack. So what we should have now then is when we rotate the engine, okay, there should be no interference. Okay, so the moment of truth then, okay, I've got our 33mm socket on here, okay, I'm not going to put any real pressure onto the ratchet, okay, but I'm just going to rotate the engine, okay, as you can see I'm not putting any pressure on this whatsoever, okay, and everything is flowing lovely. Fuel pump wearing away, oil pump wearing away, nice fluid motion of the pistons, no slack in the chain whatsoever, and then give it some rotations, okay, it will help free up the new build as well. And then what I'm doing now is I'm just rotating around, looking at our timing marks, and then to make sure everything's right, our circle on the camshaft should meet directly up with our arrow on the crankshaft.